In India, a train derails, killing at least 4 civilians. Medical teams rush to the scene to transport the injured to nearby hospitals. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Philippines to host International Rice Congress next week. DFA raises alert level 3 in Gaza amid Israel-Hamas war. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leading opposition form emergency united government to combat Hamas. Hurricane Lydia leaves 2 dead in Mexico. And Meta rolls out their high-profile celebrity AI chatbots. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, has announced a potential resumption of monetary policy tightening in the upcoming weeks, given the second consecutive month of overall inflation increase. BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. expresses concerns about potential price hikes due to inflation already observed with the recent 1 peso increase in the minimum fare for jeepneys. Contrary to this stance, Secretary Arsenio Balisacan had voiced disagreement with further interest rate hikes just last week. However, Remolona believes that the Secretary's stance emphasized a cautious approach rather than ruling out any hikes altogether. The Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, is currently investigating a reported data leak involving one of its systems just weeks after a similar incident with PhilHealth. Preliminary assessments indicate that the affected system is the community-based monitoring system. The agency has assured the public that they are implementing additional preventive and containment measures to guarantee the security and integrity of all their systems and databases. The PSA has also issued a warning to the public regarding social media posts containing alleged sample data, urging individuals not to click on any links associated with them. United Nations Population Fund study shows that Filipino girls aged 16 are more likely to be on track with their schooling than boys. The study revealed that teenage boys are prone to engage in risky behaviors such as smoking and drinking alcohol compared to teenage girls. Data shows that at age 13 to 14, 7.7% of boys tried smoking compared to 2.5% of girls. Meanwhile, 21.8% of boys have tried drinking alcohol compared to 12.8% of girls. According to researchers of the study tracked the development of Filipino children over 15 years old, following the same age group of 5,000 children from 2016 until the end of Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. Former President Rodrigo Duterte has justified Vice President Sara Duterte's request for financial funds amid controversies. In his television program, Duterte said there's nothing wrong with the request, citing that he had read the rationale of the office of the Vice President on how it would be spent. He underscored that it will be utilized to strengthen the preparatory military training in high schools, conduct seminars, and the like to kindle nationalism among youth. The former chief executive has also expressed his perception of the vice president as a good candidate for the presidential bid in the 2028 general elections. The Manila International Airport Authority, or MIAA, has received another bomb threat. This is just days after the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines put 42 commercial airports under high alert. MIAA reported the latest bomb threat was sent from a Japanese email address using the name Takahiro Karasawa. The sender claimed to be a lawyer and warned the airport authority that he had planted a high-performatic or performance bomb on a plane from Japan to an airport in the Philippines. MIA added that the sender claimed the plane was due to arrive Tuesday afternoon and would explode on a massive scale. Meanwhile, sources said the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, verified that the message was sent locally and not from Japan. A contingent force from the Philippine Army, or PA, has achieved a notable feat by winning the silver medal during Phase 2 of the exercise Cambrian Patrol 2023 hosted by the United Kingdom. Exercise Cambrian Patrol, often dubbed the Olympics of military patrolling, is a rigorous and mission-focused exercise that encompasses 8 phases with a total of 16 events. These events encompass a wide array of challenges, including chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear drills, as well as a 60-kilometer patrol involving climb and descent, among others. The PA contingent, composed of 8 dedicated soldiers, showcased their prowess, competing against 170 patrolling teams from 40 different countries. At present, no teams have secured the gold medal. The Department of Agriculture, or DA, has announced that the Philippines is set to host this year's International Rice Congress next week. Christina Agila for the details.
The Philippines is set to host this year's International Rice Congress, or IRC, this coming October 16 to 19, 2023. According to the Department of Agriculture, the said gathering serves as an avenue for rice-based food framework innovators to collaborate towards shaping a food and nutrition-secured future. This will be the 6th edition of the IRC, which started in 2002 in Beijing and is convened by the International Rice Research Institute, or IRRC, every 4 years. About 2,000 delegates, from scientists to decision makers, from the government, public, and private sectors, are expected to attend the forum. IRRC noted that key experts and thought leaders from around the globe will discuss emerging, current, and future ordeals of rice-based food systems, as well as present innovative solutions. Christina Agila reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, has declared a heightened crisis alert for Gaza, raising it to level 3 in response to the Israel-Hamas war. Vin Pascua tells us more.
Under alert level 3, the repatriation of Filipinos from the conflict area is now considered voluntary, prompting around 70 nationals to seek evacuation to safety. Efforts are also underway to repatriate the remains of the 2 Filipinos who lost their lives in the conflict. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has reassured affected families that the government will extend all necessary assistance. He has further affirmed that the Philippines will stand in solidarity with Israel against the terrorist attacks by Hamas. President Marcos Jr. also expresses gratitude to the Israeli government for ensuring the safety of Filipinos currently in the region. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, North Korea's Kim Jong-un wishes Vladimir Putin victory against imperialists. U.S. President Joe Biden urges Israel to operate by the rules of war. And Israel's Prime Minister and opposition form an emergency united government. Stay tuned for more stories from around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Okay lang ba kasi nabili na itong unit. So, lilipat ka na. $15 years! 15 years siya nakatira sa ilalim ng tulay.
15 years kaming dinuduyan ng tulay. Yung bigla, pag ako naalala niya, siguradong nandiyan yan sa tabi ko. Kaya sana wag magbago si Ana.
Yung salitang pasasalamat sa kanya, pagka tinulungan ka niya, mag-thank you ka lang. okay na sa kanya.
Kulang ang salitang pasasalamat.
Ulat ka? 6 years ko na po siyang
Kahit ito pa, nung nahuli kami, di ba? Nahuli kami lahat. Totoo ito ha, ina-expect ko pa alis mo rin dyan na. Kahit naman yung interview ako, sabi ko na, naiintindihan ko kung papalis ako rin dyan.
There are 3 obsessions in the Philippines that literally stop traffic on its tracks: boxing, basketball, and beauty pageants. While there are thousands of beauty contests in the Philippines, it seems that there is still more room with the addition of Miss Cosmo World Philippines. Join us as we speak with Miss Cosmo World title holder herself, Miss Meiji Cruz, who is also the chairperson of Cosmic Beauty OPC, the company responsible for bringing the Miss Cosmo World Philippines pageant in the country.
Beauty pageant is a celebration of heritage and one's culture. So I'm representing my country, I'm representing my own heritage, and for that, I'm already the winner.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Inmates at Paraguay's largest prison have ended a riot and freed 22 guards that they held hostage. One person died in the riot. JC Yumol has the details.
Inmates gave up about 15 hours following negotiations with authorities. They had set fire to mattresses and lobbed rocks from prison rooftop. Dozens of women who have been visiting relatives ended up trapped inside. The trouble began Tuesday at the overcrowded Tacumbo jail, which houses about 3,000 prisoners. Police says a 25-year-old inmate had been found dead with deep slashes to his abdomen. Paraguay President Santiago Peña admits the crisis is due to overcrowding. He vows to speed up construction of 3 new prisons in the South American country. Police aren't saying what agreements had been reached with the prisoner. One of their demands was the resignation of the country's justice minister. Paraguay has about 16,000 inmates housed in 18 prisons. JC Yumul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell has arrived in China with the goal of de-risking its largest partner for pre-summit talks. His visit came just days after war broke out between Israel and Hamas. This prompted Borrell to call for an emergency meeting of European ministers, with China urging all parties for a ceasefire. According to the policy chief, the visit is set to tackle EU-China relations as well as key regional and global challenges with government authorities. Relations between China and EU have been murked since Russia attacked Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Kyrgyzstan, visiting abroad for the first time since the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for him in March. President Putin is wanted by the court over the deportation of Ukrainian children. Its ruling requires members of the ICC, which does not include Kyrgyzstan, to make the arrest if he sets foot on their territory. He is due to meet his counterpart, Sadir Japarov, and to take part in a summit of the Commonwealth of the Independent States with his Belarus ally Alexander Lukashenko and other regional leaders. The longtime leader has rarely left Russia since launching the Ukraine offensive in February of 2022. This year, he has traveled only to Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine, with his last foreign trips to Belarus and Kyrgyzstan last December. Now, in a sign of Russia's isolation, he is planning a visit to North Korea next, as well as China. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin have engaged in a round of letter exchanges, with Kim expressing well wishes to Putin for victory over imperialist anti-Russia schemes, alluding to recent Western bias against Russia. In his letter, President Putin highlights that the recent summit provided further proof of the continued positive development of the bilateral relationship between the two nations. Kim echoes this sentiment, expressing his satisfaction with the talks that had recently taken place in Russia. This exchange of letters commemorates the 75th anniversary of bilateral relations between North Korea and Russia. The USS Ronald Reagan arrived in Busan on Thursday to enhance regular visibility of the United States strategic assets to South Korea. The carrier's arrival happened after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin exchanged diplomatic messages. Many experts believe Kim would want Russian help to build more reliable weapon systems targeting the U.S. and South Korea. War analysts also say the arrival of the U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in South Korea will enrage North Korea. Pyongyang views the deployment of the U.S. aircraft carrier as a major security threat. There are reports concerning that North Korea is pushing to get sophisticated armed technologies from Russia in exchange for supplying ammunition to refill Moscow's weapons for its war against Ukraine. Poland is set to hold a parliamentary election with the ruling Law and Justice, or PIS, party aiming for an unprecedented third term in power after 8 years in office. If the PIS secures a third term, it could mean a continuation of conservative governance, possibly tilting the country more towards Russia's side. On the other hand, the main opposition Civic Coalition has promised to reverse the ruling party's judicial reforms and strengthen ties with the European Union and the West. However, recent polls suggest that neither side will have enough votes to form a government. The decisive influence in Poland's governance may rest with the Confederation, which is polling at about 10%. The Confederation, a coalition-turned-party formed in opposition to perceived subservience to Ukraine, plans to halt migration to Poland and reduce support for Kyiv and Ukrainian refugees. U.S. lawmakers have participated in closed-door voting to select a new speaker following a vacancy. House Republicans put forth Steve Scalise as their nominee. However, some objections to this nomination prevented the Republicans from proceeding to a final floor vote. A Republican congressman from North Carolina, Patrick McHenry, will continue serving as acting speaker until a new leader is chosen. The timeline for the speaker vote remains uncertain at the moment. U.S. President Joe Biden warns Iran to be careful as tensions rise in the Middle East over Israel's war with Hamas after the Palestinian militant group's attack. This during a roundtable at the White House with Jewish community leaders.
Already we're surging additional military assistance to the Israeli Defense Force, including ammunition, interceptors to replenish the Iron Dome, and we've moved the U.S. carrier fleet to the Eastern Mediterranean, and we're sending more fighter jets there in that region, and made it clear to the Iranians, be careful.
Iran has long financially and militarily backed Hamas. Iran, however, denies any involvement in the group's assault that erupted Saturday. Meanwhile, Biden urges Israel to abide by the rules of war in its fight against Hamas.
I've known Bibi for over 40 years. In a very frank relationship. I know him well. And the one thing that I did say, that it is really important that Israel, with all the anger, frustration, and just, I don't know how to explain it, that exists, is that they operate by the rules of war. The rules of war.
It has been 5 days since the Palestinian militant group's surprise attack on Israel. 1,200 people have been reported killed. The United States says it is in contact with Israel and Egypt and giving civilians safe passage from Gaza. This amid the war sparked by a bloody attack by Hamas. Carlo Valdez reports.
U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says the U.S. is actively working with Israel and Egypt to assure safe passage of civilians from Gaza.
I know many of you have been asking about or expressing some interest in the idea of safe passage in Gaza for civilians. Let me just say right up front, we're actively discussing this with our Israeli and our Egyptian counterparts. We support safe passage for civilians.
Kirby says civilians are not to blame for Hamas has done. He says, however, that there is no announcement to make at the moment about a specific route or corridor. Kirby adds that the U.S. is clearly concerned by rocket attacks by Lebanon's Hezbollah on northern Israel.
And, you know, we've been watching with concern some of the rocket attacks that have come across the northern border of Israel from Lebanon, which obviously were coming from Hezbollah. So we're clearly concerned about that.
As tensions soar following the surprise assault by Hamas. Carlo Valdez from Atanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
European ministers agreed Israel has the right to defend itself, but such a right, the ministers say, means no blockade of supply, food, water, and electricity to the people of Gaza. RT correspondent Rami Al-Mughari reports.
The situation here is getting very critical minute by minute. Israeli army forces have started something like this indiscriminate fire, heavy fire against the population of Gaza. Yesterday night and today's dawn, Israelis have attacked whole neighborhoods and parts of the Gaza Strip, particularly in the north of Gaza, where a neighborhood, an entire neighborhood, was exposed to mass destruction by the Israeli warplanes, and people had no ambulances to reach them for aid, for medication. The situation is actually getting worse, with more escalation on the ground, with tougher Israeli actions against the Gaza Strip, and that's and I would like to refer to the amount of deaths. The death toll in Gaza is almost reaching 1,000, with about 5,000 others injured. So you talk about 4 or 5 days of intensive Israeli attacks, 1,000. Supposedly, if it takes longer, the amount of deaths and injuries will absolutely get higher. Also, the Israelis have been reported that they will be launching a major ground attack in the upcoming hours. Lastly, the electricity company in Gaza is going to have a press conference in the upcoming hours announcing that the electricity will be cut off completely. The Gaza will suffer from a total power outage after, over the past few days, the people had 2 hours or to 4 hours of electricity around the 24 hours.
Israel said there would be no humanitarian break to its siege of the Gaza Strip until all its hostages were freed. The announcement came after the Red Cross pleaded for fuel to be allowed in to prevent overwhelmed hospitals from turning into morgues. Red Cross Regional Director Fabrizio Carboni said hospitals in Gaza are losing power, which can put newborns in incubators and elderly patients on oxygen at risk. Carboni stated kidney dialysis will also stop and x-rays cannot be taken. But Israel's Energy Minister Israel Katz maintained there would be no exception to the siege. He insisted no electrical switch will be lifted, no water hydrant will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter until the Israeli hostages are returned home. Earlier on Wednesday, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and opposition figure Benny Gantz agreed to put aside a bitter political rivalry to form a united government, with its mission being, and I quote, to wipe this thing called Hamas off the face of the earth. Israel's Prime Minister also said every Hamas member was a dead man after the first meeting of his country's emergency government.
אנחנו נלחמים באויב אכזר, אויב שהוא גרוע מדאעש. ראינו ילדים וילדות כפותים שנורו בראשם, אנשים ונשים שנשרפו בעודם חיים, צעירות שנאנסו ונטבחו, לוחמים שראשיהם נחרטו. היה במקום אחד הם הכניסו אנשים והביאו גלגלי ספר מסביב כדי שיהיה חומר דלקה ושרפו אותם חיים. מה גדולה הזוועה? מה גדול הכאב?
Alongside Netanyahu and Gantz, the centrist National Unity Party leader and a former defense minister, also including Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, formed the new temporary cabinet. The country's main opposition leader, Yair Lapid, has not joined the alliance, but the leader said that a seat would be reserved for him in the war cabinet. The emergency government will give a broader national consensus to military action. It also brings the war cabinet two voices who are experts in military strategy. The announcement of the new cabinet came in the wake of an exchange of attacks by Hamas militants and the Israeli army. The death toll in Israel has reached 1,200, while Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have killed more than 1,100 people.
אנחנו נלחמים בכל העוצמה, בכל החזיתות. עברנו להתקפה. כל איש חמאס הוא בן מוות. חמאס זה דאעש, ונרסק ונחסל אותו, כפי שהעולם ניסק וחיסל את דאעש.
Israel Defense Forces showed journalists through the aftermath of a supposed site of a massacre by Hamas militants. Journalists examined the devastated kibbutz Kfar Aza, located close to the Gaza Strip, where the remains of the deceased could be seen just outside their homes. A reporter from a certain news agency reported that an IDF commander had informed her about the discovery of around 40 infants' bodies, with some bearing signs of horrific violence. As reports of the horrific killings of babies, including some being beheaded by Hamas militants, spread on social media, people in Israel and the rest of the world were taken aback by the sheer scale of brutality set forth by the militant group. Later, in Turkey's Anadolu agency reported that the Israeli army said that they had no information to confirm reports that babies were massacred. Anadolu's report further publishes that the Israeli army has neither confirmed nor denied the reports. Israel has not arranged a similar tour for its own journalists, underscoring the nation's focus on shaping global perception. Lebanon's Hezbollah has moved carefully since Hamas and Israel went to war, keeping troops busy with attacks at the Lebanese border, but not open to advancing without cause. The Iran-backed group is walking on eggshells since deploying special forces and priming its rockets in preparation for the possibility of war. Tensions are higher at this point than they were since the last Al-Aqsa Intifada. Hezbollah's Palestinian allies, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, have also entered the fray, attacking Israel from Lebanon for the first time, including a cross-border infiltration in which the Israeli army says 3 of its soldiers and 2 gunmen were killed. While Hezbollah is not ruling out war, sources said its moves so far have been designed to be limited in scope, preventing a big spillover into Lebanon while keeping Israeli forces occupied in northern Israel. The United States has warned Iran not to get involved and has sent an aircraft carrier strike group closer to Israel, describing this as a strong message of deterrence to stop the conflict from broadening. Most of the news headlines about the Hamas attack on Israel have been focused on how world leaders view the war. Little has been said about those who live with its effects. Thomas I. Likeness turns the spotlight on for the victims of the fighting.
In military terms, they're called collateral damage. People in the wrong place at the wrong time. Through no fault of their own, they had the misfortune to be in a world hotspot. And when the geopolitical pot boils over, they end up under the rubble of these buildings. The lucky ones, if you can call them that, end up in an ambulance like this. But again, through no fault of their own. Those who do not die under falling buildings that have been bombed try to survive while their supplies of food, water, and electricity are cut off. Emergency physician Mohammed Gonaim says losing electrical power has dire consequences. It means people on dialysis die because machines don't work. Hospitals are limited in their ability to treat the injured and sick. Communications are non-existent. And as the battle moves from the air to the ground, civilians are killed in the crossfire. The generals, far away from the battlefield, plan their strategies. They accept that non-military people, folks who have nothing to do with the fighting, will die. They use euphemisms, civilian casualties, collateral damage. Both sides rationalize their attacks, saying they're fighting for justice. But that justice is elusive. The futility of war. And for those innocents killed, injured, tortured, and maimed, there is no justice, only pain. And the world waits for some kind of resolution to this latest conflict. Thomas I. Likeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, witness volunteers in Israel as they work under dangerous conditions. Find out how an Israeli-American teenager survived the Hamas siege. And El Salvador gang crackdown puts troops on city streets. Please don't go away. We've got more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Net 25 celebrities, muntik mapatalon sa kaping kunwari ay matatapon. Oversized na paper bills at giant coins, may tatanggap kaya kapag yun ang ibinayad sa kanila?
Kita, salamat po. Ito, 20. 20. Okay na po.
Part 2 ng Papa Fish Shake Your Booty Prank Challenge. Marami ang napapashake ang ulo at muntik nang mahilo. Prank Tito, na playtime ng Team Onibo dahil tutulog-tulog. Kakaibang banana shake na literal na nagsashake. Marami ang napapashake ang ulo sa bilang. Lahat ng yan ating aabangan ngayong Sabado, alas 8 ng gabi sa Oh No HBO, Bureau Only sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you.
Niger's military leaders have ordered the United Nations coordinator to leave the country within 72 hours, blaming the world body for hindering international recognition of the post-coup regime. The expulsion order comes a day after the United States cut off more than $500 million in assistance to Niger, and as France begins withdrawing its troops after they were also ordered out. In a statement, the Nigerian Foreign Ministry said that the government was expelling the UN's resident and humanitarian coordinator, Louise Aubin, and instructing her to take all necessary measures to leave Niamey within 72 hours. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres deeply regretted the order, as his spokesperson Stefan Dujarric reiterated the unwavering commitment of the UN to stay and deliver for the people in Niger through continued humanitarian operations. 16 UN aid workers allied with the humanitarian agency Red Cross Red Crescent were killed after Israel hit the headquarters of the Palestinian Red Crescent in the northern Gaza Strip in aerial strikes. The rescue service said that the attack was a direct violation of international law. 2 different incidents were cited as significant towards their claims, the first being the strike that hit a cluster of ambulances, initially killing 4, and the second being the one that hit the Red Crescent headquarters, responsible for all other casualties. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, or IFRC, called on all parties to respect their legal obligations under international humanitarian law, stating that their work was non-negotiable. Civilians, healthcare workers, health facilities, and civilian infrastructure must be respected and protected at all times. Israeli volunteers are working around the clock to help and evacuate war victims from the Gaza border. From Israel, RT correspondent Maria Finoshina reports.
The city of Beersheba in Israel's south and the sporadic Hamas attacks itself, it's home to an emergency civilian response NGO that helps those in need. 5 days into the escalation, people continue to evacuate from Israeli towns and settlements near Gaza. They come here when they have no other place to run, to be temporarily sent to their new homes. The first were those who survived the gruesome attack on a music festival on Saturday, where at least 260 were killed, with hundreds of others reported missing.
I can't even describe stories that we heard about what happened there. It's like it's unheard of. It's something that you see in your horror movies. Almost 400 people that survived the party and came here. The people came without clothes, without shoes. You saw that they are shocked. Some are injured, and we just helped them, giving them water and some sugar, some dates to eat. And we started to connect them with volunteers.
One Heart is far from the only, but perhaps the biggest Israeli initiative of its kind, with 10 centers scattered across the country, connecting resources with needs.
We never say no to nothing. So that's the motto. Like you want us to bring medicine to an old guy, that person that was stuck somewhere, we will bring it. You want us to help extract hundreds of people from Sderot, we will do it. We have armored bus here, and we are like sending with it food, and like we're bringing back people from Sderot and from other communities. We send food to isolated army bases.
Today, the NGO unites 10,000 volunteers, monitoring, receiving calls and coordinating people like Silvio, who is here with all his family.
Now it's united after what happened, because all the time when disaster happened in Israel, we united. We hope that now our government will resolve the problem with Gaza forever.
For security reasons, the NGO never reveals the time or itinerary of its missions, big or small. We were lucky to catch a car that brought 82-year-old Shoshana, who was rescued from Sderot.
I have seen many wars, but there was never such a thing. It's the first time that these beasts storm into houses, tie up and kill kids and babies. Never before. I was in the Six-Day War and the Attrition War. I've been in Sderot since 1956, and this is just too much. To kidnap and slaughter, they don't have a heart.
Escaping with Shoshana was her caregiver, Marie, from the Philippines.
It's very hard. I got trauma, crying, because my family back home also worrying about me, because the place where I am is very dangerous. That's why I'm asking somebody to evacuate somewhere.
Accompanied by volunteers, the women continued their journey to a safer place where they could stay until they can return home. Days into the Israeli assault against Gaza, in response to the Hamas offensive, thousands of people are still staying in the country's south, facing the danger of more missiles falling and the potential of some militants still hiding in Israeli territory, creating a shooting or kidnapping threat. These civilians need safety. They need support, meaning the mission of the organization like
one heart is far from over. Rifa National RT reporting from Beersheba, Israel.
UK's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly was forced to run for cover as Ofakim city in Israel came under rocket fire. A video showed Cleverly and a group running into a building as air sirens blared of incoming Hamas shelling. Cleverly arrived in Israel to show UK's unwavering solidarity with the country. Sources said Cleverly and his group were safe. While there, he will meet survivors of the attacks as well as senior Israeli figures to discuss clear humanitarian position on the fate of Gaza civilians. An Israeli-American teenager managed to survive a siege on his home by Hamas militants over the weekend after his parents shielded him from gunfire with their bodies and died in the process. As the chaos ensued on Saturday, October 7, the Matias family huddled in a bomb shelter in their home to protect against rocket attacks. The father, Shlomi Matias, had his arm severed while trying to fend off the attackers as Debbie Matias directed her son, Rotem, to take cover. Tragically, the mother was fatally shot with a bullet passing through her and injuring Rotem. The 16-year-old Rotem played dead beneath his mother for nearly half an hour before finding refuge under a bed and later under a blanket in an adjacent laundry room. He managed to escape the attackers twice before being rescued by Israeli soldiers. The attack occurred after the family had gathered for a joyous evening with music, as both of their parents were musicians. Shlomi Matias was a music teacher and Debbie Matias was a singer and songwriter. The family had returned to the kibbutz with plans to attend a Bruno Mars concert in Tel Aviv the following day. Meanwhile, the death toll in Mexico from Hurricane Lydia has risen to 2. The storm caused flooding, damage, and blocked roads before moving on. Rani Bayuga has more details.
This is what people woke up to Wednesday morning in western Mexico. Shattered glass from storefronts littered the streets. The storm packed winds of up to 220 kilometers an hour. It toppled trees and utility poles, knocking out power and communications. Authorities say one of the people killed died while trying to drive a truck through an overflowing stream. Another motorist died when a falling tree hit his vehicle. Lydia quickly lost strength as it moved inland, but its remnants continued to bring flooding. Schools suspended classes and shopkeepers closed their doors until the storm passed. Most people waited out the storm at home or in shelters. Rani Bayuga for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Spain, a fire ripped through a building, killing 4 people in Vigo City. Local officials said among the dead were 3 children. A Spanish news outlet reported that the victims were a mother and 3 of her children. Emergency services said 8 victims were rushed to nearby hospitals after sustaining injuries. Authorities said the fire broke before dawn on the ground floor of the building. Firefighters confirmed they had completely extinguished the blaze. The conflagration came just 10 days after another blaze claimed 13 lives at a nightclub in southern Spain. A rail accident in eastern India has left at least 4 passengers dead and another 80 injured. The tragedy happened Wednesday night after 21 coaches of an express train derailed. Bruce Balmeo tells us more.
Rescue crews worked throughout the night to get people off the train to safety. Darkness hampered their efforts. Medical teams rushed to the scene to transport the injured to nearby hospitals. Other trains on the line had to be diverted because of the wreckage. India has one of the world's largest rail networks. It has had several disasters over the years. The worst occurred in 1981 when a train plunged off of a bridge into a river below, killing 800 people. In June, a triple train collision left nearly 300 people dead. And in August, 9 people died when a coach caught fire as a passenger tried to make tea. Bruce Balmeo from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The military is roaming the streets of 2 Salvadoran cities to round up gang members. The government ordered more than 3,000 troops to help 500 police officers in the operation. Kimi Oria has more.
Some
3,500 soldiers assembled in the rain early Wednesday to take part in the pre-dawn operation. El Salvadoran troops guarded entry points to the two cities on the outskirts of the capital of San Salvador. Throughout the day, soldiers armed with rifles and wearing helmets and bulletproof vests patrol the streets looking for gang members. They went house to house asking for identity documents and rental contracts, as many gangsters seize houses from locals. Some officers even took up positions in a small church. Others checked passing vehicles. In March of 2022, President Nayib Bukele imposed a state of emergency that has seen tens of thousands of gang members rounded up. The move has been popular among residents, but civil rights groups are alarmed. Congress has been asked to approve an extension of the state of emergency. Kimi Oria from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Engineers have recovered the rest of the debris and human remains presumed to be from the Titan subwreck on the Atlantic seabed. United States Coast Guard said the additional parts of the craft were recovered from the seafloor and taken to a U.S. port. Medical officials are analyzing the human remains collected. The company Ocean Gate made the sub visit the Titanic wreck that lies 3,800 meters below sea level in the North Atlantic Ocean. The craft was destroyed during a dive to the shipwreck in June. All 5 passengers on board were killed, including the company's CEO, Stockton Rush. The Titan sub imploded under the intense pressure of the water, sparking an international hunt for its remains. Coming right up, Birkenstock to debut in New York with a multi-billion IPO. Social media giant Meta invests in celebrity AI chatbots. And Disney warns of a Hollywood strike that could halt production. Catch the latest in business, sports, tech, and entertainment when Matanang Agila International returns.
Masyado nang tight ang budget niya. Hindi siya tatagal.
Para lang matuloy ang renovations ng Evergreen Hotel,
Napag-usapan na rin to ng board na ikaw ang magiging general manager. Mahalaga ba ang building number 2? Sobra.
at mailigtas ang ipinundar ng ama.
Yun ang kapalit ng posisyon.
Mapipilitang mag-resign si Andrew.
Si Mr. Chi ang papalit sa akin bilang bagong general manager. Kailangan mo ba ng isang magaling na assistant?
Ikaw, assistant ko?
Maka-adjust kaya siya sa kanyang bagong trabaho? At lalong mapalapit kay Vivian?
Ano bang binubulong mo?
Gusto kita.
My Bargain Queen. Gabi-gabi, 8 p.m. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Sapat ang talino para manalo. Kailangan nilang bilis na kamay para hindi matalo.
Please welcome our Tara Gamers na models!
Halika, kayo na may papasa yung tanong na yan.
Sa'yo! Sa'yo na lang.
Ano ang tawag sa isang strand ng spaghetti?
Spaghetti rin.
Ano ang tawag sa isang strand ng spaghetti? Spaghetti rin. And this is Tara Game! Level up!
German sandal maker Birkenstock debuts on the New York Stock Exchange with a valuation of $8.6 billion. Elise Danielle has more details.
Birkenstock's current valuation belies its former dowdy image.
Birkenstock says it has set its share price at $46. A total of 32.26 million ordinary shares will be offered in its initial public offering. The company will be trading under the symbol Birk. Birkenstock started life as an orthopedic shoemaker. It has since become a fashion favorite and recently the pink footwear of choice for Barbie. The stock flotation marks a new milestone. This just 2 years after the Birkenstock heir sold the majority stake to private equity group L. Catterton and the family holding fund of French luxury magnate Bernard Arnault. Elise Daniel for Matanay Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Former Formula One mogul Bernie Ecclestone has pleaded guilty to a criminal tax fraud charge for failing to declare more than £400 million of overseas assets to the UK government. The former F1 boss had pleaded not guilty to the charges in August, but he changed his plea at a case management hearing on Thursday. Ecclestone was charged with failing to declare the overseas accounts in Singapore after an investigation into his finances by His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Microsoft has said it will contest a U.S. tax authority's request to pay an additional $28.9 billion in back taxes for the years 2004 to 2013. The Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, was also seeking penalties and interest. Tech giants have been criticized for reporting lower profits in high-tax countries and higher profits in lower-tax jurisdictions to minimize their tax burden. But Microsoft argued they had always followed the IRS's rules and pay the taxes they owe the United States and other taxing authorities. NASA has unveiled that the asteroid sample it had collected contains abundant water and carbon. The discovery follows a 7-year trip to the distant rock as part of the OSIRIS-REx mission. NASA noted that the latest sample is the biggest carbon-rich asteroid ever returned to Earth. NASA said it will preserve at least 70% of the sample at the Houston Space Center for future study, while the rest for public display. Meta is reportedly investing millions in creating AI chatbots that impersonate the personas of high-profile celebrities, creating a spin on the AI conversational sphere. Catherine Ortula has the data.
Meta, the social media giant formerly known as Facebook, is reportedly investing millions in creating AI chatbots that impersonate high-profile celebrities. Stars like Tom Brady, Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, and Charli D'Amelio are reportedly involved in the project, marking a significant shift in the landscape of AI chatbot interactions. These Meta AI virtual assistants, initially available in the US, will have the ability to answer queries and generate responses similar to OpenAI's ChatGPT. This move by Meta, which was unveiled in September's MetaConnect conference, emphasizes the company's attempts to create more engaging and immersive interactions for its users, leveraging the appeal and recognition of famous public figures. However, the specifics about the project, its partnerships, and the functionalities of the celebrity chatbots remain under wraps. The ethical issue of using celebrities' likenesses will also likely spark a debate as the technology evolves. Catherine Ortula for Matanay Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In the NBA, a criminal summons was issued for Charlotte Hornets forward Miles Bridges for violating a domestic violence protective order, misdemeanor child abuse, and injury to personal property. The 25-year-old Bridges pleaded no contest to a felony domestic violence charge in November and was sentenced to 3 years of probation with no jail time, where he was accused of assaulting the mother of his 2 children in May of 2022. The incident that led to the criminal summons occurred Tuesday with the same woman, according to the Mecklenburg District Court. In April, the NBA issued a 30-game suspension without pay for Bridges, with 20 games already served as he sat out last season. The suspension meant that Bridges would not play in the first 10 games of the coming regular season, where he signed a one-year qualifying offer to return to the Hornets. Meanwhile, LeBron James paid homage to the Philippines in his NBA preseason debut on Tuesday. James rocked a pair of LeBron Annex X T-Gen Titan Hoops fair that features the colors of the Philippine flag. The sneaker is the fourth collaboration between Titan and Nike Basketball, where it made its official release last August 13. The 38-year-old James is entering his 21st season in the NBA as the oldest player in the league, following the retirement of Miami Heat veterans Udonis Haslem. After Son, the directorial debut from Scottish director Charlotte Wells received 5 nominations at this year's BAFTA Scotland Awards. Bernadette Manuel has the scoop.
After Son, released in 2022, has been nominated in 5 categories, including Best Film and Best Writer. 13-year-old Koryo, meanwhile, is the youngest person ever to be nominated for the awards. Directed by Edinburgh-born Charlotte Wells, the critically acclaimed coming-of-age drama tells the story of a father and a daughter at a holiday in Turkey on the eve of the father's 31st birthday. After Son had its world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival last year, where Wells was nominated for the Golden Camera. It received 4 nominations at the 76th BAFTA Awards, where Wells won for Outstanding Debut by a British Writer, Director, or Producer. Mescal was also nominated for Best Actor at the 95th Academy Awards. Meanwhile, the documentary My Old School and the TV series Mayflies and Karen Peary were also in the running for awards. Edith Bowman will return to host the BAFTA Scotland Awards ceremony, which will be held in Glasgow on November 19. Bernadette Manuel for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Disney's Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee warns the actors' strike could halt animation production later this year. The Disney boss says she understands the sentiments of actors in terms of wanting fair wages, but she admitted her films and other production units could be affected by the end of this year if the strikes continue. Lee won an Oscar for writing and directing the hugely popular animated film Frozen. She's also the wife of actor Alfred Molina, who played the iconic Dr. Octopus in Marvel films. It's Thursday, and to send you off today, here's a quote from American speed skater Bonnie Blair. Winning doesn't always mean being first. Winning means you're doing better than you've done before. I think the aim is to do it one step at a time, one day at a time. If you can be a better person today than you were yesterday, then that is winning. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Lina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point. Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International as your trusted news source, keeping you connected to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.